Kayflyn.
Hey, Waf, what are we doing today?
Today we're going to nerd out with row selection with DataFrames. Once we've loaded data into DataFrame, we probably don't want the thousands or tens of thousands or millions of rows. We want to select it down to just a few specific rows that we might want to focus on. And we're going to do two different aspects of row selection. This video is going to cover functions that do row selection. And then after this, we're going to nerd out with conditionals that do row selection.
Perfect. So what are the first couple of functions?
So whenever we have a data frame, the first things we're going to do is we're going to load the data frame in. So that involves importing Pandas as PD. And then we're going to create a data frame that contains a data set by doing pd.read_csv, open parentheses, open quotes, put the URL of the data frame inside of quotes, and then close the parentheses. Then we have this data frame. What we've done so far is we've displayed what's inside the data frame by just doing df.
Yeah.
But what I want to do is I want to focus on being able to select a subset of rows of the data frame. So what I want to do is I want to create this data frame, but then look at different functions that will select just a subset of all of the rows. So one function that does that is I might want to just look at the first 30 rows. And to do that, we have the function df.head. And then inside the function, we are going to open in parentheses and put the number of rows that we want to show. So this will include the number of rows to show. And here we're looking at the head or the top of the data frame. So if we do df open parentheses head of 30, that's going to show the first 30 rows. So I have a new data set, because one thing we want to do in Discovery is look at different data sets. And this data set is a live data set that we update all the time, which includes every single football game that the Illini football team has played. And it's a live data set, so as soon as they win a football game, we have it updated in this data set.
Perfect. And what is this one? What is the URL for this one?
So this is on my faculty website, and this is called football.csv. So the full URL is going to be https://waf.cs.illinois.edu/discovery/football.csv. And it looks like, Carly, you've got VS Code open.
Yeah.
You've imported Pandas as PD. And now you're doing df is equal to pd.read_csv.
Yep, and I put the link to the football data set in there, and then if I do df, I can see exactly what we saw on the screen, which is all the football games. It looks like the most recent, or the very first row, not necessarily the most recent, but it is August 29th of 2024, so it was last season.
Awesome, the 2024 season, which was a really good season for the Illini football. And how many rows are in this entire data set?
It looks like, so if I scroll down in Python, it will always tell you how many rows and columns there are. So there are 1,309 rows and 9 columns. So 9 different variables, 1,309 observations.
So a ton of different rows. And now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and run this df.head of 30. And we can see that it should just display the top 30 rows.
Yeah, so I'm doing df.head of 30. And I can see that it looks like actually the top 30 rows were all of the games in 2024. So the most recent one being on New Year's Eve when we had played in the Cheez-It Bowl. And then I have 2023 next.
Awesome. So
and even some from 2022.
So the top 30 rows basically spans from 2024 down to 2022, it sounds like?
Yes, exactly.
And then this data set's a live data set, so it's going to be constantly updated. So you may see a different view of this data. But what we can also do is we can look at the ending rows. So instead of doing df.head, we can do df.tail. And it's the same idea that we specify the number of rows we want. And here, I'm going to specify just 20 rows. And we should be able to see that we can see the last 20 rows in the data set instead.
Yep, so I'm going to do df.tail of 20. And that should give me the oldest games. So yeah, it looks like they're from 1892 to 1893. In the 1800s, we were playing some opponents that honestly don't even exist anymore.
Wow.
So that's kind of crazy.
So head and .tailor is nice to do exploratory data analysis, where you might want to look at the top of the data frame, the bottom of the data frame. And by default, Python will show you the top 5 rows and the bottom 5 rows when you just display the entire data frame. But one thing that's really useful is to just look at sample of all of our data.
Yeah.
So there's the df.sample function is another function that is row selection. And there's actually 2 different ways we can use df.sample. So one way to use df.sample is to look at a specific number of rows And to do that, we do df.sample, open parentheses, and then we say n equals the number of rows. The other way we can use df.sample is do df.sample and do frac is equal to a number of rows. And inside the fraction, Python doesn't understand does not understand percent signs, so we need to use a decimal as a fraction.
Ooh, okay. So if we wanted like 6% of the data, we'd have to put 0.06.
Exactly. So 0.06 is going to be 6% of the entire data in the data set. So let's see if we wanted just 6% of all of our Illini football games, what would that do us if we use df.sample, open parentheses, frac is equal to 0.06?
Yeah, so I did exactly that. And when I run this code, I get 79 rows and 9 columns. And it looks like it gave me some pretty random games. Like there's one from 2016, one from 1912, one from 1943. One from 1898, one from 2024.
Yeah, what seasons are on the top 2 rows?
Season 2016 and 1912.
2016 and 1912. So those 2 rows, if we were to do another random sample, because what sample is doing is taking a random sample of all the observations.
Yeah.
Would you expect it to be those same 2 years?
I'd actually expect it to be different ones.
So it should be a truly random sample. So there's a chance we may see 1 duplicate,
Yeah.
but the chance of seeing 2 duplicates is almost impossible.
So I just ran the code again, and now I have 1930 and 1996 as the first 2 rows. And if I do it again, now I have 1942 and 1992.
So it's taking a true random sample of the entire data frame and grabbing, in this case, 6% of all the observations, which would be great if we want to do a experiment where we want 6% of the participants to take to be part of a study or something.
Yeah, exactly.
The other way we can use df.sample is instead of saying frac is equal to something, we can say n is equal to a whole number. So if I want to just get a random selection of 3 football games, we could say df.sample of n equals 3.
And I just went ahead and did that, and I have 3 games, one from 1994, one from 1997, and one from 1976.
So we've chatted about just a few of the row selection functions inside of Python. But one thing we'll refer to a lot throughout the entire course is this thing called a Pandas cheat sheet.
Ooh, yeah. And doesn't that show different functions that I can use to do basic exploratory data analysis?
Exactly. You can find the Pandas cheat sheet in the back of your notebook, and it not only has all of the functions that you can use for exploratory data analysis, but it has almost every common function that you use in Python. It's a 2-page cheat sheet that has a whole bunch of useful data. We're going to specifically be looking at the subset observation section of this Pandas cheat sheet, where this is going to look at how we can take a whole data set and convert it into just a selection of our rows that we're interested in looking at. Or the
And that's
subset
what we
of
just
rows.
did.
Exactly. So you can see here, we've got the head function, we've got the tail function, we've got the sample functions that we've looked at, and there's several other functions that we are going to nerd out with throughout the rest of this course.
That sounds great. And that was row selection in Python.